Hello and welcome to part 2 of this mini-series where we are covering financial abstinence. This time I will be covering how to identify and avoid traps and discuss the various kinds of sources where you'll find various forms of manipulation. So when and if people find out about your sudden wealth, there's going to be three different categories of sources where you may encounter that may try to influence your spending habits. The first being relationships, second being institutions, and third is self sabotage. So, starting off in discussing relationships with other people, us guys have a lot to look out for, especially if we are single and dating. Guys, we have a lot of insecurities that are going to affect the way that we treat women. And it's going to affect the way that we allow women to treat us as well. Unfortunately, a lot of single adult men who gain a lot of wealth, power, or fame fall into a lot of these traps with women. They allow themselves to be seen as more or less like an object, such as in the similar way of how women allow themselves to be seen as objects for sexual purposes. With us guys, we are seen as objects of wealth. So if you allow yourself to fall into traps of seduction, flirtation, and flattery from single women who only want your wealth, you are not going to have a good relationship with that woman. Not at all. And it's also going to affect the way that other women will see you. When women learn about your wealth, they're going to do all sorts of things to try to get some of that money. They'll try to seduce you, they'll try to flatter you, they'll try to be your friend and your ally and your potential wife, even though they have no strong feelings towards you whatsoever. They'll even go to the extent to defame your character and attempt to destroy your careers and your passions through all sorts of social manipulative ways. So men, you especially have to be careful. Women, this isn't as much of a problem with you because of how us humans have evolved. Men have always been the so-called providers in society. The only issue I could see with you women is you may intimidate guys with your wealth. But it doesn't mean that there are no exceptions to any of these sort of so-called rules. It's just not going to be as much of an issue for you ladies. However, let's say you are currently married with children. You may try to hide your wealth and abundance from if you are single and you are dating. But if you are married and you have children, it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be worth the deceit to hide your wealth from them. So, your children, depending on your children, obviously, you may fall into traps of sort of neediness from your kids. They may want you to spend a lot more money on toys that they may never even use. And they may try to use your wealth to become popular in school. They'll try to make you buy them the most fancy, luxurious types of clothing or uh, items or toys or what have you, just so they can impress their friends. They may try to invite their friends over to your house to kind of flaunt their daddy's wealth or their mommy's wealth. So that can potentially harm the growth and character of your children if you allow them to do that. It'll be more detrimental to them as opposed to you. So that's something you gotta be a good parent for in order to prepare for this sort of thing. Your spouse, whether it be a man or a woman, they may try to manipulate you with sex or manipulate you with divorce too. You should always try to be good to your wife and kids, obviously. You should try to splurge on them on however you can, especially when you become wealthy and rich. But you also have to know that you need to set some sort of rules and guidelines so you don't become seen as just the Mr. Moneybags. And because that can devalue your worth to the eyes of your spouse and to your children. So, moving on. Family. There was this show on TLC, I believe it was called 90 Day Fiancé. I don't watch it, but I watch YouTubers who react to it, and they are hilarious when they react to it. There was one who was like this Hawaiian dude who was dating this lady, and he came over from Hawaii and came into mainland United States. His mother was very pushy in getting money from him. And she would threaten to disown him. She would threaten to cut off her relationship to her son. So you may encounter some of those same issues with your relatives, your parents and your siblings, as well as any other distant relatives that may come into your life, right? If you first got your distant relatives, kind of think of them like a Facebook friend. You haven't really spoken to them in years, and then all of a sudden they show up because they know about your wealth. And then, of course, you got like your parents and your closer family that may attempt to deceive you and use other forms of manipulation to try to get some of your wealth. Just to be clear, by the way, none of this is guaranteed to happen. I think hopefully I made myself clear earlier in these presentations, but this is just stuff that you should be mentally prepared for in the event that it does happen. Not that it will, but it may. So with parents, they may lie about their financial situation. They may threaten to disown you, as kind of what I mentioned before. They may attempt to use forms of guilt to try to make you give in to their demands. So, you got your friends as well. You got your so-called Facebook friends. Again, similar to your distant relatives. You got your friends can deceive you with their financial situation. They could come up with these bogus business ideas, which may sound good on paper, but they may not be as truly dedicated, and they may either by intention or by accident, and they may not even follow through with their own business ideas. They could also be more inclined to use forms of threats to cut ties and possible physical violence. Or character assassination as well is still a possibility with your friends. The biggest issue that a lot of us will face, especially with our friends and family and loved ones, is a lot of them are going to be very close to us, and their view on us is going to change a lot. So there's going to be moments in time where you will have to consider cutting ties with even some of your closest friends and family that you have. It's going to suck if that moment arises, but it's going to be a very important decision that you will have to think about, and you will have to learn how to be okay with. All right, moving on. Institutions. Institutions such as charities, businesses and business partners, political campaigns, clubs, as well as other companies and advertisements. So charities may try to guilt you into donating, into making donations. They may have like the best intentions, but depending on who's running the charities and who's encountering you, may attempt to be greedy or needy. It doesn't mean that the charity can be bad. It could just be the way that they are presenting themselves, right? They may be accusatory, such as calling you greedy, or calling you a racist or transphobe, or some of the tactics that these left lunatics do to a lot of people in politics, especially. They may deceive you. They may lie about where your money will go and how it will, quote unquote, help the charity. And of course, with all of these institutions, they will try to pressure you. They'll want you to donate now. They'll want you to give your money now. Kind of like car sales tactics. They do not want to give you a moment to think about your purchase or your donation. So a lot of these will be similar with these other institutions, just so you know. So with your business and business partners, like if you do run a business and you have employees, and if they somehow come upon discovery of how much you've suddenly gained from this mother of all short squeeze, they may attempt to demand raises, which, it's always good to try to help your own employees, especially if you're a small business, and especially if you're more capable of. You can write it as a business expense too, to help grow and flourish your own companies. But it's also important to know that you still need to do some level of discernment to determine whether or not that it's going to be worth the investment. You don't want to just give money away recklessly just because you think you're doing something good. Otherwise you may be exploited into wanting to do it with a lot of other things. Kind of everything I've been saying before. Your business partners may try to deceive you, like money laundering, for example. So this comes with like a sense of greed as well, obviously, where you will be either tricked or convinced into some sort of scheme from your business partner to try to make a quote-unquote a lot of money. And this happens so many times in businesses. And this happens so many times, especially with large companies with executives that get off scot-free and suffer no consequence for their own actions, such as the hedge fund managers, right? Such as what's going on in Ukraine and the $100 billion that are being sent from our taxes over there in this giant money laundering scheme. You also have to consider cybersecurity and hackers and other forms of infiltrators from either the inside of your companies or from external threats. Cybersecurity is a whole nother pot of potatoes, which is I'm not really going to go into in all too detail. But if people discover that you have a lot of wealth, there's going to be a lot more attempts to get your private information. So be on the lookout. Incompetence can also be sort of a threat in a way. You may have business partners that may have like these amazing business ideas. However, they may not be fully capable of executing them, which is another reason why you got to do your due diligence and you got to be extra careful and deciding where to put your money in. It doesn't even mean that they're a bad person for mishandling your money if you do give them some form of funds to help with whatever business ideas that they have. It's just that they may not have the skills to do so. And you have to really and deeply consider, hey, is this guy going to actually fulfill his promise? Is this guy fully skillful and knowledgeable on how to use this money? That's something you got to think about. There's a lot you got to think about. Think about. Think about it. Okay. I've been saying that shit a lot. And if they don't get their way, of course, they can use threats. They can threaten to harm you or your business in different ways. All right. let's go down and continue. Political campaigns. Obviously, threats are going to be a huge thing if you decide not to cave and give into certain political demands. They may threaten your image, and they may threaten your physical harm. Remember what happened to Seth Rich? That motherfucker got blown up by Hillary Clinton. So, and it wasn't even about money. It was about power. So, it was about power and it was about truth. But when people want your money, they may threaten physical harm just as badly as people in power currently do. They may use forms of deceit such as gaslighting and ad hominem attacks. Again, they'll use these sort of crazy leftist tactics where they'll call you an ismphobe because you won't give in to their campaigns. Just like charities. Clubs. Clubs can still attempt to use forms of flattery and deceit to try to get what they want from you. And so will companies as well. Companies will use flattery, deceit, pressure, and a whole wide variety of tools to help make you purchase something from them or invest into them. So, obviously, deceit, such as false advertisement, such as lying about their products or the cost of their products. They may pressure you to buy now using car sales tactics as well. All right, so in that case, the next part I'm going to cover is how you can sabotage yourself in a wide variety of ways when it comes to your own financial health, as well as coming up with different forms of solutions and various forms of notes to be on the lookout for when it comes to financial abstinence. So if you enjoyed everything that you've been listening to, if you find this to be very insightful as a fellow ape, then go ahead and leave a like and comment down below. If there's anything that I missed that was quite overt, please comment and let me know, and I may make a follow-up video as well. Again, none of this is financial or legal advice. All this is just a form of entertainment, and these are just my opinions and my opinions only. And I'm just here to do my best to help you guys out for when you guys do receive your precious tendies. So, all right, thank you all, and I'll see you in the next recording.